welcome to the third show, and this is for AUA Hub. And today we have Neil Janklow, who is one of our guest hosts. I have Chrisanne Carwitz, another one of our guest hosts. And we have Gloria Steiner. She is one of our guest hosts, but she won't be joining us today. And since we've been interviewing everybody, we have asked Chrisanne to be on the hot seat, so to speak. And we would really like Chrisanne to be our guest today. And with that, we have lots of questions and looking forward to speaking with Chris. And so, or Chrisanne, excuse me. And so with that, let's see, I have Chris. The last time that you joined, Chrisanne, last time you joined us, you had said that you kind of fall in between an intuitive, a sensitive, and as of yet, an undefined mystic. Can you give us a little bit more feedback into that description?
Yes, I can. It's probably not going to be very well defined more than what I gave you. I find things change, and the more I'm open, then the only consistency that happens is a triangular relationship between me, the person that I'm with or working with, and other, which other could be it could be a past relative, it could be different types of healers, it could be entities as of yet undefined. The only thing I know for sure is that if I don't define it and I'm open, and the less the other person I'm working with has preconceived ideas or judgments, then the more flow happens. And then there can be almost a shifting of the guards. Sometimes it happens spontaneously. Sometimes there are people who are so resistant that they tell me I'm wrong because they don't want to hear what I'm saying, which usually comes out in the future. But again, the future is undefined. So for me, during COVID, I started to kind of come out of the closet some way spiritually, and put up a website, and I did some readings, and I just put it out there to spirit that if it was the right time, then things would flow, and it didn't seem to be the right time. So I kind of retreated and just went back into some personal insights, and I've been writing a book for years on grief, so I've been working on that. And then, just my own personal business. But it's so mutable. It was hard for me to even charge for it, because it felt like if somebody comes to me and this is something they want to hear and this is something they need to hear, then I'm just a conduit. I'm a witness, and I'm honored to be a part of the discussion. Does that make sense? It's very undefined to me. It's
I think it's beautiful, actually, because some of the work that we all do, or that everybody that is quote unquote labeled, tagged, communicate with as a light worker, or open themselves up as a conduit. I know that it's almost with working with honor and a privilege. And to understand exactly where you fall in, when do you fall in, how you fall in, and in what step do you make these changes and share yourself, that it could be really disconcerting. Neil, did you have some input into that?
Well, I really appreciate that sharing. It's very clear, the imagery I get when Chrisanne explains how other can be changeable, and I'm just like saying this is clearly spoken, and it's for me at least easy to follow and relate. And if nothing really comes up, I just as far as timing, when everything will, the universe will give reinforcement and manifestation. That's just a matter of time. I think that we just keep moving forward, and then there's then everything lines up when in its own time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I just thought I'd jump in and share that. It all sounds really easy to follow for me. Thank you.
Well, with Chrisanne, I know that in meeting with you and getting to know you, it's like we've had this automatic bond, this friendship, and it's all based around energy. And I really think that some of the things that you're bringing forward in your life is very beneficial for anybody and everybody. And I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit more about, if you would feel comfortable, to tell us a little bit more about what you're writing about and the effects that you've had and what you hope to share?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I've been writing a book actually on grief through the years. It's been therapeutic for me. And I feel like I've been led down certain paths. And interestingly enough, right now that the two most pronounced paths are crossing over. The one is grief, and the other seems to be a current lesson of self versus other. The book started from a deep desire to have grief honored in our society. In America, we're fairly youth obsessed, and we don't even acknowledge grief. And when you're in the midst of it, there's no place for this deep grief that's, the ripping of your clothes and the falling to your knees. And there's this over exaggerated expectation, I think, in the mental health system, which is a part of a normal grieving period that can last from 3 to 5 years. I mean, I lost my dad a month after losing my dog. And this dog and I were really close. I mean, I never really understood a dog-human connection because I was a young mother. But this dog, I mean, we were psychically linked. I mean, I'd think, let's go for a walk, and he'd get up and go to the door. We just had this amazing connection. And there was a few things that were really impactful. One of them was I had a niece tell me it was time for me to get over it. She's like, Auntie, I know Grandpa died, but you really need to get over it. And I was 3 weeks out. I mean, I was still wearing his flannel shirt and talking to him out loud and ugly crying, snotty sobbing. And I told my niece, I'm like, this is 3 weeks. I mean, we can't move on when we're deeply emotionally handicapped. And that is unacknowledged or shamed in our society. I think that when we don't have an allowance for this grief, we create an inner emotional schizophrenia, really. I mean, grief is also cumulative. So each loss piles on to the previous loss. And the despair goes through many cycles and it goes over and over again. But in order to move through, we have to acknowledge first. And we grieve every loss. I mean, every choice, there's a loss. We get something, we give up something. We leave a relationship or a spouse or a job or a town, and we make these conscious decisions for ourselves because it's the best thing for us and something we need to do, but we grieve, we miss it. And we need to, I think, honor this place of losing the life as we knew it.
Well, it sounds like you had just started a journey. And at this point in time, I'm going to ask, we will go ahead and break for just a brief minute from one of our sponsors. But when we come back, Chrisanne, I'd like you, if you could, explain even more about how the grief has transmuted you into further into your life, and more about what you're writing about. So we'll be right back. Thank you.
I always look up and made it there. Dreams can come true if you only believe. Your story is written, so read it. Yeah.
Today's sponsor is Stewart Fitness. Working with a professional personal trainer with years of experience is one of the fastest, easiest, and most successful ways to improve your health, fitness, and lifestyle, specializing in working with clients with health issues, sports injuries, and proven results with clients losing 30 pounds all the way up to 100 pounds or more. Make the best decision of your life now and contact Bryant Stewart at Stewart Fitness, 415-397-4277. Today's sponsor is Stewart Fitness. Working with a professional personal trainer with years of experience is one of the fastest, easiest, and most successful ways to improve your health, fitness, and lifestyle, specializing in working with clients with health issues, sports injuries, and proven results with clients losing 30 pounds all the way up to 100 pounds or more. Make the best decision of your life now and contact Bryant Stewart at Stewart Fitness, 415-397-4277.
I never gave up. I always look up and made it there. Dreams can come true if you only believe.
Well, welcome back, everybody. And we have our guest host that we have asked to be a guest today. And this is Chrisanne Carwitz. And we were talking with Chrisanne right before the break in regards to grief and how grief is viewed and the project that she's working on. And so to continue that discussion, Chrisanne, I'm not quite sure how you would like to discuss, or if you would like to discuss a connection that you had to somebody very, very important to you.
Oh, are you speaking of my grandmother?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So after my dad passed, I put myself into an altered state in order to connect with him. And it was, these things are always really surprising. I mean, he came through with this group of people, and they were all having a party. I mean, they were just having the best time. And there was 3 generations of my family that lived in St. Louis, and they were all there. They were the neighbors, and my dad came through and he was really happy. And he's like, yeah, I'm great. You know, everything's fine. And like, this is great. We're all connecting with each other. And I was just so excited to reconnect with my dad. And this woman comes through, and I was perturbed. I mean, I wanted to talk to my dad. And then it turned out it was my grandmother. My grandmother and I didn't have a great relationship. She had a hard life, and she was not the person I wanted to talk to, but she came through, and in a spirit form, she embraced my hands, and she said, I just want to thank you so much for forgiving your mother, which my mother and I had a recent deep forgiveness and healing with each other. And she said, you don't understand the impact of that forgiveness. You've impacted not just future generations, but you've changed the past. And I couldn't understand that. That was the first time I'd ever heard that our actions in this moment are the most powerful, because time doesn't exist. So what we do today changes all those past relationships and allows for healing both from the past into the future. There's never an end to any of these relationships. There's always a continuance in our mind and our heart, and this creates a change within our reality. And this is the true essence of love. This is the true healing capacity of forgiveness. It's powerful and it's timeless, and nothing is truly gone. Everything that we do has an impact. Everything that we say, every thought that we choose to hang on to. And this is what brought me to self and other again. So it came full circle between those 2 lessons of grief and self and other. If we can create a clear channel within ourselves, then we can truly deeply connect with other, unimpeded by unacknowledged pain, and providing others with an emotional sanctuary through the suffering that, you know, that's Buddha's number 1 truth, right? Life experiences are equated with pain and suffering, but we can choose. And this is where our power lies.
That's a very powerful message. And Neil, I wanted to ask, did you have some input or questions for Chrisanne?
Yeah, it's something that I was curious if you could expand upon. You mentioned that pain is a kind of like a noisy wall that goes up that interferes with well, you touched on it just a minute ago. Can you expand on how pain interferes with changing how one is grieving, and how it's interfering with connecting with part of yourself that wants to heal, or just maybe experiencing the pain. Can you expand on how you see as the pain as a role in the healing process?
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, I think that you misinterpreted what I was saying, because where I was starting with was the importance of this pain and the honoring of the pain, and not acknowledging it, not having it have a safe place within our society is what creates this inner emotional schizophrenia, such as my brother lost his wife and he's in a religion. I mean, a lot of the churches don't even help. I mean, people don't hold Shiva, in his religion, grief equals a lack of faith.
Oh.
He can't fully develop it or acknowledge or be supported in his grief because now he doesn't believe that in their belief of God that the person's in a better place, and they just have to wait until they can see them on the other side. And yet there's, of course, anyone in a grieving mind would say, well, I'm going to commit suicide, but you can't commit suicide in the church, right?
Right.
So where do you go with this? And what I'm saying is, let's embrace it. Let's go through it. Let's have something that is substantial that we can say, listen, we're all going to grieve. There's no doubt about it. Small grief, large grief, we're all going to have them in every experience in our life. So let's make an allowance for that. If we don't have rituals in America, make our own. But let's get through it. And through it doesn't mean you go linear. Now I'm going to be sad, and now I'm going to cry, and now I'm going to be angry. That's not the way it works. It's this ongoing cyclical experience. And the more we allow ourselves and honor ourselves in those experiences in whatever capacity we need to. If we need to go off to the mountains, go off to the mountains. If we need to go to the beach, go to the beach. If we need to have everyone feed us for a week and cry in the bathtub, like whatever we need to do, just acknowledge that, honor that, allow that to happen. And then you can help someone else when they're grieving. And we can stop denying who we are and what we need. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Moving through life with grief as opposed to pushing it away, pushing the pain away, and not, learning to live with it and honor it and embrace it. That makes a lot of sense.
Grief is messy.
You never know when it's going to hit you and how. Yeah.
And grief happens. Grief happens with a test result. Grief happens with a diagnosis. Grief happens to the caregiver. They are silent witness to a very difficult situation that it sometimes is harder for the caregiver than it is for the person going through it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, from my experience, my wife passed a couple of years ago, and she was asking me over and over, how long is it going to take, before you're okay? I just couldn't answer. I'm taking care of you. I can't. How can you ask me that? My focus is on making you comfortable. She asked
Right.
over and over.
As a caregiver,
She said because when I'm gone, I'm just gone. It's the people that are left are the one that'll suffer. That are ones that will suffer. I'm just gone.
Right. And you, for me anyway, I put myself aside in order to care for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to the empath? What happens to the empath just walking through a hospital or helping during hospice? You accumulate these emotions and these feelings, and it's an unacknowledged overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, because there is no valve, no safety net, nothing. And as this has been happening since man has been on earth, it is something that, how does it differ in our culture here? Chrisanne, if you could probably want to share, how could it possibly change for the better? Could it?
Yes, I think we need to, number one, acknowledge it and let it be messy. And as empaths, acknowledge our own connections and not demean ourselves for not being the person it's happening to. I think when I look forward to the future, I hope to have this new level of self-other where the connections are deeper, they're more open, there's more awareness in my output, my kindness, and having an allowance of what I choose to prioritize, because all the change starts with me, my preconceived opinions, judgments, my distancing. You know, some people distance themselves because they do feel the hurt and they don't want to. You know, it's not even about you. It's about they don't want to hurt and you're representing pain. So I think I'd like to release myself from trying. You know, I've just been trying, and honestly, in the past, I now see that a lot of my interactions have been self-preservation, controlling, stemming from fear. And instead, I'd really like to focus on joy and love and true connections and have a faith and trust in myself and in the other. You know, just sometimes not knowing, allowing things to be messy is where you start.
And does that also include us reaching out to those that have already passed, not to bring their energy in, but to communicate with them? Do you find that a value?
Well, when my son was little, he asked me about death, and I said, honey, it's opening the door from one room and going into the other room. They're already here. I mean, I was giving someone a facial once, and you know, I mean, God, what do you do when there's an aunt with wild red hair trying to get your attention who's passed and you're giving a facial? What do? You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, so how do you feel about, intuition, psychic stuff? Like, how do you feel about, ghosts? And she's like, yeah, cool, I'm open to it. And I'm like, okay, well, your aunt really wants to know there's a family reunion coming up and she's going to be there. Like, she won't leave me alone. Right? I mean, they're here. They're here with us all the time.
And Neil, do you have that same experience?
It just flashed. You're doing your job, and suddenly there's a relative like, hello, I'm here. Say, can you deliver a message for me now? And I'm, it's just not the right time and place. But you have, like you said, you have to ask the questions. Well, I had to tune someone's piano way up in the mountains, and their driveway was like a 40-minute drive. And you get this little tiny house and a big piano in there. And I thought she said on the phone, no, I'm just here with my husband. And but because when I came down the driveway, somebody was behind the front door, or somebody was in the front yard, but I couldn't see them. And I'm like, well, they'll pop out from behind a tree. So I get my tool bag out and start walking towards the house. And she comes out a side door. over here. I'm like, but what about, she's like, she's been a widow for 10 years. I had to learn how to live in this property, this rural property. And I'm like, but you're like the guy with the beard and the receding hairline in the front. And I couldn't say anything. All I could say is, he's there, and while I'm tuning the piano the whole time smiling,
Mhm.
you know. And she told me, she goes, my husband loves it when I play piano, and I haven't been playing it a while, and that's why I decided to tune it, because I started to want to play again. And then he tells me it's the thing that gives him the most joy is hearing her play the piano.
Oh,
And but I couldn't say anything. I just couldn't. I just didn't. It wasn't an opportunity. I was tuning there to tune a piano. I did leave a screwdriver. She called me back. I'll just hold it till the next time. There's my parallel story, but I couldn't go across that line. It just had to be respectful, and
mhm.
that was that. Yeah.
I think all of us that have these intuitive abilities to see spirit and talk with spirit, we are all confronted at different times when we would have the appropriate moment to share or not to share. But understanding that we are the conduit and a recipient of all of these experiences, and to know that it is truly, something you never probably expected in your life, and how blessed it really is, a blessing to be able to do this. And so with that, Chrisanne, tell us a little bit more about your writing and your book.
Really, it was it's therapeutic for me to just to write it. Again, when you talk about self and other and non-attachment to self, that means you have to be willing to detach from how you think things should be. And perhaps this is where we're going as empaths. It's the things that there hasn't been a book written about yet. And hopefully this is how we can support each other. Because like when I started with massage, I was, God, how do I'd be working on somebody, this stuff comes through, the energy comes through, the experiences happen, spirit, people who have passed on, and trying to navigate all of that between self and other. And at first, it would have been nice if I had someone showing me how, or giving me some tools on some of these things. Like I would give a massage, and the woman had an issue with her ankle, and she'd walk out, she'd be fine, and I'm limping out of the room. I mean, so take these things on, and how do you? I want to run or walk I talk to everybody. I'm like, what do you do? Some said, oh, I hold stones. Oh, I wash my hands. Oh, I take a bath. So I think
heard of those. I've heard of those practices. Yes.
Yes. And honestly, I don't know if it's the practice, just like I don't know if it's the curriculum. I think getting true with ourselves, with what we need, with how we feel, self and other. I hate to keep saying it, but that seems to be the lesson. How am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? What's really going on with me? And looking to our own guides, looking to our meditating, quieting our mind for 5 or 10 minutes, and stop that monkey brain on occasion. My monkeys are on crack. I mean, they're just, they're all over the place. So how do I know how I feel if I'm not present with myself?
Right.
So that's where it starts. And then we can allow these other guides, and not to get too crazy out there, but as I'm opening myself up, what's happening is I was laughing at you, Neil, with your plant, because I got a plant and I asked it what its name was, and its name was Ophelia, and it's a snake plant. And it turns out the naming of Ophelia has to do with snakes. And I was like, whoa, like that was mind blowing. That was like confirming, right? So I opened myself up and realized that everything's alive. Inner crystals, trees have a huge connection to each other. And the earth itself is an entity. So I think we start with telling ourselves the truth, which is really hard. That's how I started. It was like, okay, so what's true? What's more true? What's the truth I don't want to listen to? What's the truth I don't want to hear? What's the truth I would tell myself if I was my own best friend? And when you can start with that, then the possibility of anything and everything and other and that which you don't know, because let's admit we're all ignorant, has an ability to come through.
What a beautiful message. Oh my gosh, beautiful. So what we're going to do right now, Chrisanne and Neil, we're going to go ahead and take another commercial break. I really love this conversation. And as soon as we come back, I really would like to have Neil and Chrisanne talk about this and the communication with plants and having it be real. So with that, we'll take a brief break. Thank you.
Gave up. I always look up and made it there. Dreams can come true if you only believe. Your story is written, so read it. Yeah.
Today's sponsor is Angel Heart for You. Nestled in the heart of beautiful downtown Benicia, California. Come embrace the aromas of scented candles, essential oils, incense, and aromatherapy products as you wander the aisles of our inspirational, metaphysical, book, and gift shop. Please call 707-745-2024.
As I look at my life, I never gave up.
Well, welcome back, everybody, for the last 15 minutes of our show. And I just really, really love this topic, as difficult as it is. And so, Chrisanne and Neil, I would really like the two of you to share with the audience, if you could, how opening yourself up has helped you in dealing with death. And Neil,
Who
would you
first?
like to share? Or Chrisanne?
Well, okay, I guess in silence.
Yeah.
So the question is how opening yourself up to being a receptive, more receptive has helped.
Mm-hmm.
In what, with grief or in life?
In grief and in life. Because it's
well, grief is part of life.
yeah. And to share with how, you had said that when Dawn came back into your life, and, she finished tapping on the heater in the hallway. And I believe, if I'm correct, you said at the new year, like Chrisanne was saying, everybody just kind of flooded in. And it was like everybody that you hadn't seen in a while. And it was joyous. And this is exactly what Chrisanne was talking about. and to open yourself up. Granted, not a whole lot of family members and friends would be open to that, but that was tremendous healing for you, was it not?
Well, yes. And it was so spontaneous and unexpected. It's like, it was a very parallel to Chrisanne's experience of, I just want to talk to my person I lost, the loved one I lost. And then they come through, but then behind them, all around them, there's like generations of relatives assembled, waiting if it's okay. Kind of, they're there, and it's a joyous party. This was New Year's Eve, and so it became a party. And my wife said, "Turn some music on, we'll all dance." Well, I saw uncles and aunts and grandparents all dancing to 70s funk. I mean, just like they were, it's not their, but they were dancing, and they were throwing some moves down, and it was just it's such a joyous experience. How that opened me. I still can't quantify all the ways it helped me. It's on levels that I just know it felt great. And I can't, I'm too close to it subjectively to tell you just how great that was. But it was a turning point for me, because Chrisanne talked about suicide, and their religion doesn't allow it. My religion is not black and white about suicide. You're not going to burn in. They don't tell you. They don't shun it. It's just there was some talking, some discussion earlier before this with I don't know, my voice of reason, like higher self, like why would you want to just end it here? It'll hurt, cause more pain, and maybe there's more for you to do. Well, I was in a situation where it was just so painful, I just didn't even want to wake up to face the empty bed, the place in the bed beside me, instantly start wailing, not crying. And so it did change everything so that it wasn't going to be it just did. I didn't know what it was going to be, but then I can wake up in the morning and say, "Good morning," and hear, "Hi," back. It made a difference to me in my process of healing. And of course, there's other stuff on other levels that I have to work through. But it did that. That was tremendous. It was huge. Yeah.
Well, I think nothing is truly gone. Everything is an experience that has this impact on us, which is why we're here. We're here to have an experience. And it creates what? Why? Why do we do this? I think it's this painful expansion of the soul. And I think, I don't know, maybe we're idiots, but I do think we signed up for this.
As painful as it is, sometimes we, a lot of experts would like to say we chose this path before we even came in. And to choose a path that has so much pain, so much variation, would make you think, what, how unreasonable is that? How unconscionable is that?
Well, thankfully it's temporary. And I really, when I've been to the other side, this is the temporary dream. That's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is the temporary wound. And we learn and grow so much from this experience. At least that's what I've been shown, which doesn't make me any less angry.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do have to tell you that as for somebody who's looking on the outside, looking in at the issue of death and the experience of communicating with those on the other side and opening up all your senses to be able to, touch and feel and listen to vibrations or energy that's emitted from plants and trees like Randolph and Ophelia. And, to have that experience, some people don't want to even talk about that. And that's not part of these counseling sessions that the medical community provides, and it's not to take anything away from that, but just to know that this actually happens and that it's normal and that it's okay. Who's to say that, during the Trojan Wars, that people who lost people at that time, they didn't go out to the fields of wheat and talk to the wheat. Who's to say what one thing is better than the other? I do want to ask you, Chrisanne, in your experience in dealing with, I think you said it was your granddaughter that was like, it's time to stop. And that was only 3 weeks in. Do you have any messages for dealing with family members that want you to just get over it?
That was my father, and that was my niece who told me to get over it. Me being the auntie, I put her in her place pretty quick and said, when your dad dies, we'll talk. It could take 3 to 5 years. So put a seatbelt on and hang in there, because I'm going to let it go through whatever process it needs to go through. And I could have continued with rituals. I was thinking about elephants and how they keep coming back to the bones. On Father's Day, I pour my dad a whiskey, sit outside, have a drink with him. Every once in a while, if I'm feeling really sad or scared, I'll put on his flannel shirt and talk to him. So, do what you need to do. And again, allow it to be messy. Grief is messy, and it's not a step-by-step process. And I think drugging it sometimes, maybe temporarily, maybe you need to do that, but maybe just get some support and process through, and would be the most important part. There were times when I would just go to bed and I would pretend that I had a IV hooked up to God, and I'd just be like, okay, take over, because I can't, as far as I can go right now. And everything does change and pass, and we have cycles, and there's loss, and there's also gains. So I think acceptance is key.
I agree. Yeah. I think you're muted, Carol.
Thank you. And so, Neil, did you have some input into that type of discussion with acceptance?
Yeah, it is true. The grief is messy, and the doctors in the medical field and all the counseling, I did find a couple days ago a organization called Hospice. They just don't do hospice. They also have grief counseling, and their brochure talked about sitting down and talking to your deceased loved one, getting a new plant or a pet. I'm like, I was surprised. I was the first time I really actually read it, except for with people who are already doing this kind of work and are mediums themselves. This was just a grief counseling facility service branch of it, of a hospice care, and they were talking about things like this. And so I have hope. I'm looking forward to to exploring more what they have to offer. I was very reticent. I mean, I didn't want to share what happened to me with a group. It just I just because I was concerned about other people's feelings. So you know, you talk about yeah. So
Neil,
go ahead.
those people are angels. I honestly, I went through hospice for a while. I was a volunteer, and I can tell you, I sat in the room with these people, and I thought, I am in the midst of angels. Absolutely take advantage of everything that they have to offer, because they're amazing and good people doing really good work.
Yeah, it felt really good when I actually physically walked in their door, because I wasn't receiving any callbacks, and it just the place had just felt good. So I'm going to follow up. Thanks. I'm glad you had a good experience with them, and the word angels is pretty much my feeling I had when I looked at their website. I was like, this has great energy. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to thank Chrisanne Carwitz. I wanted to thank Neil Janklow. I wanted to also thank our sponsors at CTR Radio Network as well. And I want to thank all of you for listening in and being part of this conversation. It's very touching to me. So thank you. And with that, we will be back next week with our next show. And we invite all of you to come back in. And special thanks, Chrisanne, for sharing with us. And Neil, once again, thank you both. And with that, we'll conclude our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol.